One of the most overlooked but powerful things on Fujifilm cameras is this little tiny button on the back called the Q button. It's on the top on some other Fujifilm cameras, but this can do so much for you, especially if you are using the Fujifilm cameras like they were intended, getting those perfect JPEG photos straight out of the camera. With the Q button, you can go through a perfect JPEG workflow all on one screen without having to go through any menus. And that's why I love the Q menu so much. In fact, I even did an entire course on how to get the perfect Fujifilm in-camera JPEGs. A lot of that is using the Q button. You can check that course out in a link that I'll have here on the screen and in the video description. But getting on to the Q button, what it does is you press one button and then go through the workflow that I'm going to describe here. So the first thing that I do, how I have my Q menu set up, and I have altered this throughout the years, so it may look different from example to example, but what I do first is pick the custom setting that I want to use. So I could just go through and pick the one that suited the scene the best. From there, you probably want to make some modifications to that custom setting based on the scene. Or if you don't have that custom setting available, you just want to start from scratch, you'll want to choose a film simulation that best complements that scene, that best tells that story. Film simulations are all about telling the story of that picture, setting the mood, and I have an entire course, free course, dedicated to learning the Fujifilm film simulations, which again, you'll find linked here. After you select the best film simulation, then you're going to want to change some of the tonal settings, including like the dynamic range, the highlight tone, and the shadow tone. Once you get the tonal settings out of the way, then you can start modifying some of the color settings, which include the saturation or color chrome FX blue, color chrome effect, and then adjust some of the detail settings like the clarity, noise reduction, sharpness. That's how you can arrange your Q menu so you're not hunting around for all of these different things. They're all in an order, a logical order for how you want to pre-process your JPEG photos. And so let's look at how to program that Q menu now. First, you're going to go into the button dial setting menu and then edit save quick menu. A lot of the newer Fujifilm cameras give you options for having either 4, 8, 12, or 16 slots on that screen. I like to use 12. There are some things that I cut out of that 12 menu configuration. However, just choose how many slots works for you for the workflow that you want to have. And for each one of these different number of slots, you can have a different custom menu saved so that you can go from one to another. But after choosing the number of slots, then you'll get into the Q menu setup screen. You can also shortcut to this screen at any time in shooting mode just by pressing and holding that Q button, and it'll take you to the edit screen for however many slots that you have selected. So as I mentioned, I have mine set up in a workflow that I like to use for pre-processing my JPEGs before I press the shutter button. Film simulation, tonal corrections, color corrections, and then that gives me some extra slots available with the 12 slot configuration to select some other things, like having a self timer, enabling or disabling face and eye detection, subject detection, and then changing the screen brightness depending on the ambient light. Even if you're not recording just the JPEG file format, RAW-only photographers can get some use out of this Q menu by putting some settings in there that affect their RAW file. Things like their focus settings and other shooting settings that you want quick access to in that kind of logical workflow format, where you just go straight down the grid, changing one setting after another. Once you have your Q menu set up in a workflow that works for you, there is one other setting that you might want to look at, and that's the Q menu transparency settings. Depending on the generation of camera that you have, this setting is found in either the screen setting menu or the button dial setting menu, and you're looking for a Q menu background. I like the transparent background because it gives me somewhat of an idea of what my settings are doing to that picture as I am making those settings. Now, they do obscure the picture. You can't see the entire frame. However, hopefully it's enough to give you some kind of an idea of what those changes are doing. And then you can just leave the Q menu screen to look at the entire picture, press the Q button again to go back to that screen and make further changes if you need to. If you find all of that distracting, then you can just choose the black background. So again, I might approach a scene, have something in my head for what I want that photo to look like, press the Q button, and then I can just start going through everything in that order. Film simulation, tonal corrections, color corrections, make small adjustments to my exposure and white balance as needed, and then I have a great JPEG straight out of the camera that won't require any post-processing, maybe a little bit, but it's going to save me a lot of time on the back end. Again, if you want to learn how to create these perfect Fujifilm in-camera JPEGs, check out that link in the description. Use the coupon code TUBE20 for 20% off of that course. If you have any other questions or tips for using the Q menu in shooting mode, please let us know in the comments. I hope this video helps you become a more efficient photographer using Fujifilm cameras. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe for more great tips like this every week, and we'll see you in the next video.